The dress ripped at exactly the wrong moment. Miss Universe, live television, millions watching. What should have been a wardrobe malfunction became something else entirely when the cameras caught what was hidden underneath. Not lingerie. Not skin. A tattoo that made a 4-star general in the audience stand up and salute. Because those weren't just random coordinates inked on her shoulder. They were the location where she had single-handedly saved 17 American hostages from execution. The beauty queen the world thought they knew had killed 12 insurgents with a sniper rifle. And she was about to win the crown. The question is, what do you do when your biggest secret becomes your greatest strength? From which city in the world are you watching this video today? If this story gave you chills, smash that subscribe button for Quiet Tales Studio. We find the heroes hiding in plain sight, and their stories will change how you see the world forever. The Gaylord National Resort in Washington, D.C. buzzed with pre-competition energy as Miss Universe contestants prepared for the preliminary photoshoot. Isabella Bella Cordova stood before a floor-to-ceiling mirror in Suite 1247, her reflection showing what pageant judges expected to see. Honey blonde hair cascading in perfect waves, emerald eyes enhanced with professional makeup, and a smile that had won her 17 beauty titles across 3 states. At 24, she embodied the modern beauty queen, intelligent, articulate, and seemingly born for the spotlight. What they didn't know was that her perfect posture came from military bearing, not dance classes. 5 minutes, Miss Nevada, called Maria Santos, her pageant coordinator. Photographers ready for your individual shots. The hotel's grand ballroom had been transformed into a professional photography studio. Thomas Kellerman, a veteran photographer with 20 years of experience, adjusted his lens settings as Bella approached in her silver evening gown, a masterpiece of engineering with strategically placed crystals and a flowing train. "Gorgeous dress," Thomas commented. "Let's start with some standing poses, then dynamic shots." The first 30 minutes proceeded flawlessly until Thomas called for a spinning shot near the lighting equipment. "Turn sharply on my count. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Turn." As Bella spun, her trained eye caught something that made her instinctively alert, a heavy tungsten light wobbling dangerously on its mount. Without conscious thought, her body reacted with reflexes honed in far more dangerous circumstances than beauty pageants. She dropped into a tactical roll, clearing the impact zone by inches as 200 pounds of professional equipment crashed where she would have been standing. The dress be damned, she'd survived. "Jesus Christ," Thomas breathed, lowering his camera. "How did you see that coming?" Bella rose, automatically checking herself for injury. The silver gown had torn along the left shoulder, where it caught on debris, a jagged rip that exposed more skin than pageant regulations allowed. "Just lucky, I guess," she replied, but her voice carried an edge that hadn't been there before. Thomas raised his camera instinctively, capturing something remarkable through his viewfinder. A beauty queen standing amid sparking debris, her perfect facade cracked to reveal something harder underneath. But more importantly, through the rip in her dress, he glimpsed black ink on her shoulder blade. "Is that a tattoo?" he asked, lowering his camera. Bella's hand moved to cover the exposed area, but Thomas had already seen enough. The design wasn't decorative. It was precise, geometric, military. "Can I see it?" he asked, his voice shifting from professional to genuinely curious. As Bella moved toward the dressing area, the torn section shifted, revealing more of the tattoo. Thomas zoomed in with his camera, capturing what would change everything. The tattoo was a precise rendering of a Purple Heart medal, complete with George Washington's profile and, "For military merit," inscription. Below it, in military block letters, 3.1 degrees north, 44.4 degrees east, the 15th of March 2019. Thomas knew enough military history to recognize Mesopotamian coordinates. He also knew that Purple Hearts weren't given for paperwork duty. "Miss Nevada," he called softly, "you served." Bella's perfect pageant smile flickered. "I don't know what you mean." "The coordinates. Mesopotamia, 2019. That was during the ISIS counteroffensive." Thomas set his camera aside. "My brother was deployed there. Special Forces. He came back with stories about female soldiers doing things that never made it into official reports." After studying his face and reading sincerity in his expression, Bella made a decision that would alter her carefully planned life. "Sergeant Isabella Cordova," she said quietly, 11th Military Police Brigade, 2 tours in Iraq, 1 in Afghanistan. What happened over there? Bella looked around the glittering pageant environment. The lights, cameras, other contestants adjusting their perfect hair. Things that don't belong in this world. 4 hours later, the preliminary photo shoot had wrapped, and contestants were preparing for the evening's formal dinner. Bella stood in her emerald cocktail dress, which safely covered her shoulder, when Maria announced a seating change. You've been moved to the VIP table. One of the major sponsors specifically requested you. In the ballroom, Bella found herself seated next to a distinguished older man in an immaculate dress uniform adorned with ribbons speaking of a long, distinguished career. Miss Nevada, the man said, standing as she approached. I'm General Marcus Hayward, retired. As they settled into dinner, General Hayward carried himself with the understated confidence of someone who had commanded troops in combat. There was something comforting about being around someone who understood military bearing. I confess I had a specific reason for requesting to sit with you tonight, Hayward said after the first course arrived. I received an interesting phone call from a photographer named Thomas Kellerman. Bella's blood drained, but she maintained composure. General Hayward discreetly placed a challenge coin on the table, one bearing the insignia of the 11th Military Police Brigade. Thomas sent me a photograph. Your tattoo. The coordinates and date. He leaned closer, lowering his voice. I was in theater during March 2019. I know what happened at those coordinates. The formal dinner faded into background noise as Bella was transported back to dusty streets of a city most Americans couldn't pronounce, to a mission that officially never happened. The rescue was attributed to Kurdish forces, she said carefully, as it should have been officially. Hayward's voice carried the weight of classified operations. But I know it was your team that located the hostages, planned the extraction, and executed it under fire. Bella picked up the challenge coin, feeling its weight. How did you know it was us? Because I was the general who ordered the cover story. Your team left medical supplies with the hostages, field dressings with lot numbers that traced back to 11th MP supplies. A ghost of a smile crossed Bella's lips. That was Rodriguez. She said they looked hurt and we had extra. Sergeant Rodriguez didn't make it home, did she? Bella's smile disappeared. IED 3 weeks later, different mission. They sat in respectful silence, honoring a soldier whose sacrifice would never be publicly acknowledged. May I ask you something, Sergeant? Hayward said eventually. What are you doing here? This is about as far from your world as I can imagine. Bella considered her answer carefully. I'm trying to prove something to myself, that I can be more than what happened over there, that I can be beautiful and graceful and normal. And how's that working out? Bella laughed without humor. Having this conversation has reminded me that I can't really escape who I am. Why would you want to? Hayward asked gently. What you did over there, the courage, sacrifice, leadership, those aren't burdens to escape from. They're strengths to build on. Easy to say when you're not the one having nightmares. Who says I don't have nightmares? Hayward's voice carried decades of command experience. The nightmares are part of the price we pay for serving something larger than ourselves. Bella looked around at the other contestants, all perfectly coiffed and radiating pageant confidence. They don't have that price. No, they don't. But they also don't have your strength, experience, or perspective. You've been tested in ways they can't imagine. So why do I feel like I'm pretending to be someone I'm not? General Hayward smiled with paternal warmth. Because you're trying to choose between being a soldier and being a woman, as if they're mutually exclusive. You can be both. Beautiful and deadly, graceful and strong, elegant and fierce. Before Bella could respond, the evening's program began. General Hayward was called to speak about his foundation's scholarship program. As he stood, he placed his hand briefly on Bella's shoulder. "Think about what I said, Sergeant. You don't have to choose between who you were and who you're becoming. You can be both." 3 days later, during the Miss Universe finale, something unprecedented happened. As Bella stood among the final 5 contestants, awaiting the judge's decision, she made a choice that surprised everyone, including herself. When asked the traditional final question about her platform as Miss Universe, instead of delivering the practiced answer about education and empowerment, Bella spoke from her heart. "I believe in honoring those who serve in silence," she said, her voice carrying across the packed auditorium. "The women and men who sacrifice everything for our freedom, whose stories never make headlines, whose heroism goes unrecognized." Her hand moved unconsciously to her shoulder, where beneath the pageant gown a purple heart tattoo reminded her of who she really was. "If I were Miss Universe, I would use this platform to ensure their stories are told, their sacrifices remembered, and their service honored, even when the world doesn't know their names." The audience erupted in applause, but Bella wasn't looking at them. She was looking at General Hayward in the VIP section, who stood and saluted her with tears in his eyes. She didn't win Miss Universe that night, but as she walked off stage, Bella Cordova finally understood what victory really meant. It wasn't about hiding who she was, it was about embracing everything she had become. Thomas Kellerman approached her backstage, his camera hanging unused around his neck. "That was the most beautiful thing I've ever witnessed," he said quietly. "Not the pageant, but watching someone choose authenticity over perfection." Bella smiled, and for the first time in years, it reached her eyes. Sometimes the most beautiful thing you can be is exactly who you are. 6 months later, Bella stood before a room full of young women at a military academy, no longer hiding behind pageant gowns, but wearing her dress uniform with pride. The purple heart tattoo was visible on her shoulder, not as a secret to be hidden, but as a badge of honor to be shared. "You don't have to choose," she told them, echoing General Hayward's words. "You can be strong and feminine, tough and beautiful, warriors and women. The world needs all of who you are." In the back of the room, General Hayward watched with satisfaction as Sergeant Isabella Cordova, former beauty queen, forever warrior, inspired the next generation to embrace their whole selves. Some stories end with crowns. The best ones end with courage. __blank. This story was brought to you by Quiet Tales Studio. If you know someone who serves in silence, whose strength goes unrecognized, tell us about them in the comments. And if you believe these stories need to be heard, subscribe to support our mission of honoring hidden heroes.